So as Shantanu would say, Mark Weber's superpower is itself the power of storytelling. For those of you who don't know him, before coming to school, Mark produced several documentary films, including Poverty Cures and the critically acclaimed Poverty Inc. If you haven't seen it, it's a very good movie, an easy movie to watch, and it's especially easy to watch because it's on Netflix. In the best spirit of MIT, Mark's stories, through his documentaries, engage our minds and our hands. They instruct us on how we should act if we hope to one day change and improve the world. And in the spirit of the best stories, Mark's narratives also engage our hearts, the values and emotions that actually inspire us to act. As you've heard tonight, these stories have a pretty peculiar kind of magic. They enable us to empathize and to imagine. They enable us to discover the parts within us that live and glow. And for even the briefest of moments, they can help erase the distance and difference in between people. So tonight, it's my distinct privilege, pleasure, and honor to invite Mark to tell his story, to share with us the story behind the storytelling. So please join me in welcoming Mark.
Hey guys, so I look around and I see some of my closest friends and a lot of people that I hope to meet. Some of you know me really well, and others may only know me as a kid who sits in front of class and talks a little too much. Bear with me, I'm just kind of an enthusiastic nerd sometimes in class. But so it's actually, I love telling stories about other people. It's a lot harder to tell stories about yourself, and I'm just a little emotional from Masha's story, sorry, and super nervous to tell my own. It's not nothing crazy. It's just something that really shaped me and lives with me each and every day, even here at Sloan. And so I'm excited and honored to be able to share it with you. So growing up in Grand Rapids, Michigan, my favorite thing every summer, the thing I look forward to almost all year, is going to summer camp at this place called SpringHill. SpringHill was a really popular Christian summer camp up north in Michigan. Had all kinds of activities like canoeing and kayaking, climbing walls and mountain biking and anything you can imagine. You could stay in cool places like an old railroad car or a wigwam or even an old World War II plane. And when I think about SpringHill, the thing that's most special about this camp is actually its program for kids with special needs. And that's the story I want to share with you. That's my yarn, is sharing with you the summer in college that I came back to this camp and worked as a special needs counselor and the things that I learned from that. So in the United States, at least, kids with special needs, there's a lot of programs for them, but they tend to be segregated. So throughout the year, in the school year, and especially in the summer, it's hard to interact, with other normal kids. You're kind of always in your special needs programs. The thing that's special about SpringHill is that it's fully inclusive, so they don't turn any kids with special needs away, no matter how severe it is. So even if you have to eat food out of a tube and you're nonverbal or you have severe behaviors, they will not turn you away. The other thing that makes it really special is it's fully integrated. So it's one of the only camps in the country where the kids with special needs are with all the other kids for every activity. And I can't stress how important that is. I would have parents come up to me and say, this week is Petey's the 1 week every year that Petey gets to be a normal kid. And that means the world to him. And so there are 3 stories that impacted me the most, and I think have some insights and values that I think we can take away here to our Sloan community as well. The first was training. So to teach us counselors in training how to work with kids with special needs, adults with special needs would actually come and help train us. And so I was matched with a guy named Corey who was about my age, a few years older. I was 19 at the time. And Corey was huge. He lived for live music. He was a huge rock fan. He had these killer headphones, and he would just headbang to Pearl Jam was his favorite thing. And Corey also had severe cerebral palsy. And this made moving around, just basic movements, really painful for him. So he was restricted to a wheelchair and needed help to do things like take a shower and use the bathroom. And as his trainee, it was my job to be with him 22 hours a day and help him with those things. Using the restroom and shower can be a very personal and intimate thing. And when you have CP, it's also very painful to move in different positions because of the way that your body is constructed. It's one thing to make peace with the fact that you have to get help from people like your mother and your father and your caretaker to do those things every single day. It's another to like put yourself out to a stranger, a peer, who has no training, and let them do and serve you in that intimate, personal way. And so my first time like taking care of Corey in that way, it was really uncomfortable and difficult for both of us. And I could see the pain in his eyes as he would move, and I could see his frustration and yet patience with me as I would do everything wrong. And that moment, that night that I went to bed, like I'll never forget. And reflecting back on it, the thing that really stands out to me is his courage and generosity in training me, in like opening up such an intimate part of his life to a stranger in order to help me become a better counselor. And it struck me, some of the things Masha was saying about like letting yourself be vulnerable, not only for yourself, but also for the betterment of others, right? And for the relationship that can be generated from that. The second story is, takes me a few weeks down. So now I'm a counselor week to week, and I was paired with a kid named Christopher. And Christopher had this white, long blonde hair. He was about 10 years old. He was fiercely loyal to the people he loved, and really, really sweet. He also had Down syndrome and struggled with, he was at a time in his life where he was really grappling with that part of his life where he was very frustrated and very angry at how difficult it was to communicate, how he felt excluded, and in the first 2 days of camp, he was quite difficult because he would lash out at other kids, at other counselors. As a counselor, you couldn't ever be mad at Christopher because like his worst insult was like pointing at you and saying, "Baby underwear." So you just start laughing because you love him so much. But the kids, most of the kids had never encountered a kid with special needs, a kid with Down syndrome. And so they backed off, they shied away. It scared them because he was different. He was other. And I'll never forget these two kids, about like the first or second day, these two kids came up to me at Trading Post. And they asked me, "Mark, what's wrong with Connor?" And it was such a cool, just point-blank opportunity to say, nothing's wrong with Connor. Connor struggles with this thing called Down syndrome. But he has emotions and wants to have fun this week and wants to have friends and is just like you and me. He just has a certain thing that he struggles with. We all have different things that we struggle with. And I was amazed at how quickly those kids got it. They're like, "Oh, cool." And the rest of the week, those kids went out of their way, those two kids went out of their way to hold his hand, to help him communicate, to be patient with him, to be loving to him, to include him in everything, to stand up for him. And it wasn't that hard, especially for kids. I think sometimes for adults it's more difficult to unlearn some of the otherness that we assign to people. But for kids, they got it right away. And I was struck by, Christopher had parents that loved him. He had counselors that loved him. But he needed the love of his peers. That was the thing that really broke through for him. And like washed away that anger and frustration that we saw at the beginning of the week. So the third story takes me to the end of the summer, near the end of the summer. I was assigned to the skate park, which was like my dream assignment, and I had two kids who were both said to be very mild special needs. It ended up being the hardest week of the summer, and one of the hardest weeks of my life. But it had nothing to do with those two kids. When I arrived at the area on the first day, there was a scene because this one kid, not one of my kids, but another kid in the cabin, was throwing a huge tantrum because he couldn't keep his laptop, this is an 11-year-old, his cell phone, his Game Boy, all the electronics that he had brought to a camp where the rules are like no electronics. And this didn't go on for like 20 minutes. This went on for like an hour and a half, all into the evening. And then it was like 48 hours of obstinance and yelling and tantrum. And it was just like the most exhausting first 48 hours ever. The other counselors were getting angry. This kid's name was Avery. And Avery, I'm using made up names. Avery was like stereotypical rich kid, overweight, bully, angry, probably sitting on people and doing Gollum impressions. And even for the counselors, what was striking is like the counselors struggled to love this kid because he was so mean. And he didn't have special needs, right? But I felt like all of my training that summer and all my experience with working with kids with special needs was like suddenly driving to this moment where you realize, it's easy in a way to love a child with special needs. It's a lot harder to love someone who behaves in a way that you don't like, who doesn't have like an excuse or like something that you can see as a reason, right? And I just worked so hard that week, and our whole counselor group worked so hard that week to love Avery just like we would any kid with special needs. And slowly, like with that like relentless kindness, you chip away at that like facade that's covering up something deeper that's going on in that kid's life, and the hurt or the struggle or the insecurity. You chip away at it. And then like there's this gradual breakthrough, and next thing you know, he's like participating and like being included and encouraging the other kids, and he's like just another sweet little boy. And those three stories, like as I think about them sequentially and as I reflected on this talk today, I think means so much to me in terms of who I am and who I strive to be. So Corey, the CP, my peer, modeled for me and demonstrated like this generous, courageous love. Like how courageous is it to put yourself out there? Seeing Christopher and the impact that his peers on him inspired me to think about, the impact that we have on our peers, the positive impact and the negative impact that we can have is profound. And the third one is to remember, kind of like Masha said, and kind of like Shantanu referenced, like there's deeper layers of what people are going on that you can't see. And whether it's, aggression or selfishness, masking insecurity or fear of abandonment, or whether it's some pain going on in your life that's causing you to act out in a negative way, or whether it's social anxiety that drives you to like talk about other people behind their back. Whatever it is, there's like always deeper layers of what's going on. And I think that if we if we can adopt a mindset for ourselves, the challenge that I pose to myself and I share with you guys, to hold this standard to me, and also to, I think for our Sloan community, Sloanies helping Sloanies and having a positive person-centric environment. The challenge I offer myself is like, can I love every single person I meet just as I would a child with special needs, with the same patience, with the same relentless kindness, with the same givingness and generosity and courage that you learn through those types of experiences. I really believe that if we do that, if we can love each other in that way, we can have the most positive communities and the most supportive communities where people know that they are loved, and that changes everything. Thank you.